Welcome to the July edition of the Sri Lankan Power BI community. We're back after 3 months. This is going to be a recorded session, which means if you're not comfortable being part of a recorded session, now's the time to drop. And with that, let's move on with this month's meetup. So today we have Imke Feldmann from Berlin. She is a former finance director and controller who, during her tenure as a finance professional, fell in love with BI and Power BI and switched careers over to being a BI consultant. So we have her here with us today to take you through the featured session. And what she's done can be followed by a community segment on the new features of Power BI Desktop May and June 2021, which will be conducted by Darren and White. Right, so let's get started. Let's move on to the first session. Imke Feldmann will be taking us through the tool that she developed, Power BI Cleaner. Over to you, Imke.
Thanks, Ula. So I'm going to share my screen now. So I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Thank you. So yes, thanks for the introduction. So there's nothing really much more to say. I'm running a blog, which is called the BIccountant.com. And in there, my latest blog post was to present the new version of the Power BI Cleaner tool. And so if you want to test it out, then there's some background noise. Please mute yourself if you're a listener. So on my blog, you can see the article and with a step-by-step instruction on how to implement this for your reports. And on the bottom, there are also the files to download. But what I want to do now is just to walk you through how to use this tool and what it can do for you, and see what's new in the pipeline, actually. So because I have a new version for that as well. So what I'm going to do, or what I had done, is to open the PBIT file here. But for technical reasons, I cannot show you the dialog that will pop up. So this is a template file that you're going to download from my website. And in order to make it work, you have to fill in parameters, which, yeah, I think I have to open it again. 1 second, please. Let's hope this will work now. Hang on a second. So it's opening now. And this is the dialog you will see when you open this file. So this is a tool that analyzes an existing Power BI file. And to do that, it has to connect to this Power BI file, and therefore it needs 2 elements: a port number, which I will explain in a minute, and the path to the report file itself. So what I'm going to do first is to actually open the Power BI file that I want to analyze. I'm going to open it in Power BI Desktop. And hopefully we're going to see the report soon. So this is a file with some report pages in it and a lot of measures. As you can see here to the right, there's a measure table that has tons of measures in it. And we also have a couple of tables with lots of columns. So what I want to understand is which of these measures are actually used in my report and which ones could eventually be deleted, for example. So as I said, to analyze this file, I need the port number, and I can retrieve the port number with some methods. One of them is DAX Studio, for example. So if I go to my external tools and open DAX Studio will automatically connect to this current report file and show me the port number that belongs to it. So what happens if you open Power BI Desktop, then in the background a so-called analysis services instance will be started on your local machine, and a tool like DAX Studio can connect to it, and it will display the port number down to the right here. So if I would have zoom it on, so down to the right here, you see the local port number. It's called localhost 10998. And with that, I will paste it in here, 10998. And what I'm also going to do is to copy the path to my current report file. I can easily copy the path from a file explorer like so, go to copy path, and then I can just fill it in like so. And when I now click on load, the data of my template file will refresh and a dialog like this will pop up. And this is actually asking me how I want to connect to this local host where my current Power BI desktop file is running on. And I just accept the default setting, which is use my current credentials, and click on connect. And then, I'm sorry, I have to drag over all the dialogues because the Power BI desktop file has been opened on a different monitor here. So the next dialog you will see is a warning about privacy levels. And what I'm doing here is to ignore privacy levels, but you could also choose a privacy levels from this drop-down. But with this file, I prefer to ignore privacy levels and click on save. And then you will see that all the files will load. And for some reason, sometimes you still get some error messages here, but you can just close the dialog. And now you see what we see in the Power BI desktop file actually. So I just click refresh now, and then the figures will actually refresh. So don't be scared by the error messages. Just repeat the refresh and you will see all your figures in here in a second. So it's analyzing everything in the background. And now you see a list of all the tables in your model. And you also see their size. And you have a bunch of filters to the left that might do in narrowing down the things of interest. But I want to have a peek into the measure table, for example. If I click on it, I see two sections, columns and measures. And if I further expand the measures section, I see that I have a lot of measures that can actually be deleted. And this is something that you see in this column over here. And also I could analyze further further tables that say which columns are used or not used. And I can also, for example, select a filter on can be deleted, and that would show me all the measures that I could delete from my model, and with them still having all visuals work properly, for example. And so one thing is to go over to my report and do this all manually. But another option would be to use Tabular Editor for it. That's another third-party tool for Power BI that you can download. So you find the download link on my blog post. And if I open Tabular Editor, it will, like DAX Studio before, it will automatically connect to my current model. And if I open the tables section, oh yeah, I'm searching, I'm looking for my measure table where I want to delete my measures from. And as you can see, there's no measure table here. And that's because I opened the tool from my workbook that analyzes my report. So of course, I have to open it from the report that I want to clean up. So I go back to my reporting page and open Tabular Editor. And there you see that if I now open tables, I find all the tables of my model. I can click on Measure Table, and I could then basically put these windows side by side and just click on the fields that are displayed to be deleted. And if I now, for example, delete the measure KPI profit %, I can just click right click and delete this measure. I get a warning that if there are dependencies that other measures might stop working, which is, yeah, what might happen. Then I go to File and Save. And then this deleted measure will then be deleted from my model over here. And here you see to the right that dependent measures already throw warnings. So of course, if you these are also measures that are not used in the model. So this would be another measure that you can then subsequently delete from your model. So this is one way to work with the tool. So here we have the desktop version that basically just delivers a report that shows you what is used and what's not used. And another thing is for columns, for example, you can see the size of big columns, and depending on whether you think it makes sense to get more space in your model, then you either delete them all or just focus on the big ones to delete. You can also use this file to analyze dependencies a bit. So for DAX calculations, for example, you can say, let's go back to the measures here. For example, you want to see where this measure is used, diff. You can just expand this field. Then you see how the measure is defined. So this gives you the measure definition. And the next level below it shows you where this measure has been used in. So this measure has been used or referenced by the measure table diff percentage. And if you click one more down, you see all the paths and all the dependencies that are existing with regards to the difference measure in here. So this is one way to get more insight into your model and what's actually happening in there. And another option would be to use the search boxes here. If you, for example, type in a name of the measure, actual, in here, you would then see all fields that have a reference to the actual measure. So you would have an overview of all elements that refer to the actual measure. And last but not least, there is one more table in here that shows every measure definitions. So again, here you have a nice search box where you can enter values if it's not freezing like it's currently doing. I think looks like I've destroyed my, I clicked clicked a bit too much here. For some reason, it's not happy with what I'm doing here. So I think we can close the presentation of the desktop version. because I want to move to the next version, to the Excel version that has some more options. And especially if you have many measures to clean up, I would recommend to use this Excel version instead, because with it you have a page in here that allows you to display all measures that are up for deletion. And if you click that button over here, you get a result in this table. And that is actually a script that deletes all measures that are not used in the model. And so I'm gonna copy the values from here, everything from the script. And if I now hop over to the tabular editor, I can go to advanced scripting and paste in the code I've copied. And then I just have to click on this green triangular here to run the script. And then it says, well, I don't, there's no measure with this name because, yeah, we've deleted it already. So let's see. How can we, let's just close this file without saving. So I'm going to close this file without saving. And I'm also going to close the tabular editor. And then I'm going to reopen the file. And when I then connect tabular editor to it, I should be able to run the script that I've just copied. Just hang on a second. So as long as it's loading, are there any questions so far?
If there are any questions, you can unmute and ask. Doesn't look like there's any right now.
So back to the file, I'm gonna open tabular editor again. And I drag it over here. I go to the advanced scripting and click play. And then you see that our measure table has only a handful of measures now. But in the model, they are still there, as you can see here. So in order to basically apply this to the actual model, I have to go to File and Save. And you see that here the wheels are turning, and now I see that all the measures have been deleted and my reports are still working. So none of the measures I have deleted here have been used anywhere in my report, and I have a clean report with all only the used measures in it. And the second option we have in here is to hide unused columns. I think I have to run it from here, so I think I have to refresh the columns here. So let me show how to use that from the Excel file. we basically have to fill in the same elements. So I have to fill in the port number in here. Let me check. So that was 10998. Is it still? Let me check. Let me check in DAX Studio if it's still the same port number. No, it's 10953. So I go to Excel. 10953 is the current port number. That's the path to my file. And if I click on refresh main result, then a macro is running in the background that will refresh the necessary queries. So again, I'm using my current credentials, and the refresh will run in the background. And once the refresh is finished, it will automatically move over to the report page. Now, if I go to measures, you see that I only have things that are to keep because we've deleted all the unused measures already. But there are still a lot of columns that are not used and which could theoretically be deleted. But because they are columns from Power Query, I cannot delete them using Tabular Editor. But what I can do is actually hide them in my model so that the report designers won't get distracted by them. But of course, if you want to actually delete them because you want to save some space in your model, you would have to do that in Tabular Editor manually. But what I can show you here is just that you have a sheet that's called columns hide. Here you can see all the columns that have been detected as unused, and in the action column they get a field hide. And so if you want to hide all, you just click the button here and copy the code from the results table. But if you say, well, there are just some columns that I still want to keep, you just delete the hide entries in here. And then after you press the button here, the script will be updated. It will be automatically loaded into your into the Zwischenablage, into your clipboard, and you can then go over to Tabular Editor again and paste the script for the hiding of the model tables. Click apply, and then you will see here a lot of columns are grayed out, which means that they are hidden from the view in the model. And then again, click on save, and the changes will be applied to the model. So you will just see the fields that are actually used in your model so far. But they are still in here. So if you go to the table view, you can see which columns are actually have been hidden by the script. And some other features of the Excel files are the options to analyze usage of fields and records for so-called thin reports. So as some of you may know, you can use a so-called shared dataset in Power BI. So if I publish a dataset into the Power BI service, I can then reference this dataset from multiple different reports actually. And of course, it would be a big mistake if I delete all the measures that have only been used in the main report. If there are other reports out there in the service that might be using other measures from this model. So therefore, in the Excel file, there is an option that allows you to search through all the service reports that you have access to and determine all used fields in there as well. And to do this, I'm going to use a different report that's called cleaner test file, like here. And I actually have to fill in 3 parameters in order to analyze live connections to Power BI datasets. First, I have to delete the port number here, because otherwise it would still use the analysis of the local file. So I have to go down here and fill in the port number of my new file. I go to external tools and retrieve the port number. Which in this case is 10.9.11. So that's 10.9.11. And what I also have to enter is the dataset ID number from the service. So the report I'm going to analyze now has actually been published in the service, and it's this it is this dataset in here. And to grab the ID of this dataset, I can click on the dataset like so. And here I see that I have 3 reports referencing this dataset. And if I analyze the URL, so the last number in my URL, which is between datasets and details, above here between datasets and details is the dataset ID. And this is the ID that I have to put in to the second field here. And I can choose if I want to connect to it as a user or as an admin. I know that I have admin rights, so I can choose as admin. And the last thing I need to analyze everything that's in the service is actually to get access to the service through Excel. And if we would do this in Power BI Desktop, we might use a custom connector for this, but unfortunately that's not possible in Excel. So there's a different method to get authentication details through a Microsoft website actually. And this is the link to the Microsoft website. If I click on it, it takes me to a page of an API endpoint. And if you click on try it, to the right here, you're gonna be signed into Power BI service, and there will be, you will see once the authentication is finished, you will see the authentication details in this area here. And all you have to do is to click on copy and copy and paste everything from here into the Excel file, like so. Just click paste, and then you have the authentication details for in order to access the Power BI service artifacts, basically. For this to work, you have to register an app in your Azure environment. You find a link in my blog post, sorry, on how to do it. So I'm not going into the details here. But after you've entered all these items here, again, you can click refresh main result, and you will see the result of the analysis. And now you see that we are having an error here. And this usually happens, let's see where this happens. So this happens in the query reports AS for analysis services. And the reason for that is that these credentials have actually been too old. So I've entered them in the morning and they only have a limited lifetime. So what can happen is that you have to just re-authenticate to the service and copy fresh credentials. And this is what I've done here. So now I go back to Excel and copy the fresh credentials in here. And if I now, oh, I had to close. If I now run the macro again, I should then see the result finally. Let's see how it works. Again, it asks me how to connect to the port number. Again, I accept the default settings. And this could, of course, take a while depending on the size of your workspaces and how many reports you have in here. So what's happening in the background is that a couple of API calls are going to be made that determine, that try to automatically determine which reports have been connected to the data set, and then these report files are gonna be extracted and analyzed in the background using Power Query. And here you can see down to the right here that it has actually identified 3 report files, which basically confirms what we've seen while when we got our dataset ID. And again, you can just focus on the things to delete. That's basically just the same like we've seen in the presentations before. So yeah, that's what you how you can proceed in order to analyze usage of thin reports in the service. And this there's also a new option that I haven't published yet on my blog post. I hope that I will be able to write the blog post this week or at the weekend latest. So a new feature in here is to determine and analyze reports that have a live connection to analysis services. So if you have analysis services running in the background locally or in the cloud, you just put in your the addresses of your server And the database name, again, puts current authentication credentials into the table below, like so. And this would then allow you to analyze reports that are connected from the service to this analysis services model, basically. So it's fairly similar to what we've seen with the live connection. Yeah, so this is what I wanted to show you, a quick walkthrough how to use these tools and what you can do with them. Of course, what I should have mentioned before is there is no guarantee that everything is 100% correct. For example, I've been preparing a new version of the cleaner tool that has some bug fixes in it because previously fields from the new smart narratives visual haven't been detected properly. So this has been a visual that I haven't been testing on, and some friendly folks gave me a warning that there's something wrong in there. So if you are using it, I would strongly recommend to make a safety copy of your report first before deleting all your measures. And of course, if you run into problems or see that things think that there's a bug in there, you can just drop me an email or make a comment under my blog post, and I will try to fix that, of course. Yeah. Are there any further questions? If not, then I would head over back to you, Gogula.
Thanks so much, Imke. Are there any questions? You can type them out on the chat window, or you can unmute and ask your questions from Imke. Imke, will you be around? Oh, I think there's a question.
Say again, please.
Oh, there was a question.
Hello?
I think it was a false alarm. Will you be around until the next session finishes, or will you be signing off after this?
Yes, I will be around until 2 o'clock. Yeah, watching the next session. Yeah. Yes.
Awesome. Sorry. If there are any questions that you want to ask of Imke, you could type that down in the chat.
Exactly.
So thanks so much, Imke, for this wonderful session. I'm sure a lot of our Power BI model builders especially will find this tool quite useful. I have also put down the links on the chat, the links to the tool, and a couple of links which Imke was using during the session.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's move on to the next session. So here we have a community session. It's called Favorite New Feature. And we have Darren and White, who work for Fortude, who will be taking us through with a few new features, few reporting features that were released with Power BI Desktop May and June 2021. Over to you, Darren and Warren.
Hello everyone, so I'm Darren. Just let me know when you can see my screen.
Yes, you can see it now.
Yeah. Okay, so my session today, so I'm going to talk about the new modern visual tooltip feature that was released in the May 2021 update as a preview feature. And just something to note, this new tooltip doesn't work for all visuals. So as you will see during the demo, you can drill down and drill through using this visual, but it's not available for report page visuals. So the tooltips where you use a report page, app source visuals aren't supported either. So any custom visuals won't work either. Matrix visuals, line charts, area charts, stacked area charts, and decomposition trees. So these visuals aren't supported by this. So maybe hopefully in the future it would. So let's go into the demo. Yeah, so hope you can see this.
Yes.
So what I've got here is just the AdventureWorks data set, our favorite bike shop. So I'm sure you all are all familiar with the current tooltips that's available. So here you just get the small notification, right click to drill through, and that's about it. So since this is a new feature, we will have to go and enable it. So just so we go to preview features, and over here we need to enable it. Once it's enabled, once you enable it for the first time, you'll be prompted to restart the application. And then once you do that, then you can enable it for your particular report. So I'm going to go ahead and enable it for my report. And okay, and here we go. So this is the new modern visual tooltip. So as you can see from this, we can drill down and drill up and also drill through. So it greatly improves the user experience for users, and it gives a clear indication of what fields have drilled down and drilled through. I guess sometimes these arrows over here can get lost in the report sometimes, and for new users who are not too familiar, this new tooltip does make it a lot easier to navigate the report. So you might be wondering, okay, I can drill down from here, I can use the arrows as well. So both options are available, but if you wish, you can disable this. So for this particular visual, I'm going to do just that. So we go to the formatting pane, go to visual tooltip, and we just disable the drill on drop down. Sorry, not that. The drill up icon and the drill down icon. So that is disabled. But as you can see, it's still visible. So it will only be disabled for the read-only view. So when you publish it to the service, your users will not be, those two buttons will not show. I'll just show that at the end of the demo. And another thing is this, as you can see here, this tooltip has a white background to go with this theme. We also have, if we go with a dark theme, we can see that the background color automatically updates to match that. Unfortunately, the background changes only for the Innovate theme. So if we go to one of the others, it's still just the white background. So hopefully, maybe with some updates to the theme, maybe in the future we could see a few more customizations. But if you want to customize the styling further, we can go ahead and do that by customizing the current theme. We go to page, sorry, visuals, tooltip, and from here we can change our colors. Just use some random colors. probably wouldn't advise you to use this combination in your report. Not sure what it'll look like. So there we go. I'm sure I definitely wouldn't recommend you using this. I'm sure it breaks all the rules in the accessibility rule book. And if you wish, you can customize it further for a particular visual. So for that, we just go to formatting, tooltip, and then over here, we can just select a few more sensible colors. So this visual will have that customization, that particular styling, and then this and all other visuals would have the one that we set for the team. Yeah, so I'll just pop over to the service. Show you the change that I did. So as you can see over here, this visual, which we didn't do anything to the visual header, the arrows are visible, and over here it's disabled. So it does clean up the visual header quite a bit. And another thing to note is this, the drill down is only for a particular field. So if you want to drill and if you want to expand all the levels, you still have to use these the buttons on the visual header, but you can still drill up using this. Yeah, just a bit hard to catch it there. Yeah, so that's basically it. That's the modern visual tooltip that is in preview from the May 2021 update. Thank you. So I hand it over to Warren to continue the rest. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. In my demo, I will be demoing 2 new features that were released as part of the June update, which are the inner padding for continuous access, as well as the transparency sliders for area charts. So let me just share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So the data set here that I've got is some flight data from JFK Airport. We've got a column chart here and a bar chart here, and they are with the default heading values that are available. This feature was available for categorical data earlier, but now it has been enabled for continuous data. So let's get going and see how we can adjust this in a padding of the visual. So you'd open up the visualizations pane. Sorry, just select a visual, open the visualizations pane, go to the formatting pane, and under the x-axis, you can scroll down, and over here you have the option to adjust the inner padding. So let me just increase it at first. So as you increase the padding, the spacing between the columns increases and the columns become narrower. So you can go all the way up to 50%. So now the columns look much narrower and there's more spacing between them. You can go down as well, all the way down to 0. So here we have more histogram kind of effect. So let me just drill down to one more level. So here we have continuous data with the daily flight departures showing. If this seems too crowded, you can increase the padding. So here 20%, this is the default value that is there. You can go all the way up to 50, and this maybe get maybe too much, so you can adjust it to what you want. So let me just show you what this looks like with a clustered column. Let me just add now filter this. There we go. So now we've got clustered columns in our visual. And as you can see, the padding affects the clusters, and the gap between the clusters is what's changed. So you can get it all the way down to 0, but that may not be the greatest idea for this kind of data. So let me just get that back to 20. Yeah. So that's with the column chart. Moving on to the bar chart. This has categorical data, so it's very much similar, but the only difference is you would have to go to the y-axis and you can adjust the padding from there. Next up, I'll just move on to the next feature that was released as part of the JUL updates, and that is the transparency slider for area charts. So here we have an area chart with flight arrivals. And this is at the default value, which earlier was 60% transparency. So how you would adjust this transparency and access the slide is in visualizations pane. Under the formatting tab, scroll down to data colors. And under data colors, scroll down, find the area transparency slide over here. So if you increase the transparency, the fill area underneath it becomes more transparent. If you go all the way up to 100%, it basically becomes a line chart. So if we come back down, the transparency decreases, it becomes more opaque, and the contrast increases. And if you get all the way to 0, its contrast is quite high. And of course, what happens here is some of the areas get covered by the other ones. So that's probably not recommended, but I'll leave that up to you to decide. I personally like to have it around 80%. It is quite nice to me. So this is with the area chart. It can also be applied to a stacked area chart like this. Yeah, I don't recommend you going too low on the transparency. So let's move back around. So those are the two new features that have been available as part of the JUL update. There may not be a very functional advantage to this, but the advantage is you can adjust the look and feel of your reports and your visuals and improve the readability as you wish. Has anyone got any questions?
So if there are any questions for Darren and Warren on the features and functionality that they showcased, you can unmute your mic and ask them. And we also have Imke still around, and if you have any questions for her, you could ask her as well.
So if there are no further questions, I'll hand it back to you. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Darren and Warren. It was great having you on doing that segment for us. All right then. So since we don't have any more questions, we can wind up for the day. Please don't forget we have our community site as well as our YouTube channel. Just quickly paste the link to the YouTube channel on the chat. We'll have the recording of today's session up soon. Well, if there are no more questions, we can close up for today. So thank you so much to our speakers. Imke Feldmann from Berlin spoke about her tool, Power BI Cleaner. The links to her tool is there on the chat at the top. And thanks to Darren and Warren for taking us through the new features as well. Let's see you next time.